Okay, we are recording now. We made copies of everything again. Some of it will be duplicate since we are still doing 3010, but I just thought until, at some point, I just want you to have it, and so if you're not searching through your stuff.
That's fine.
I did add 1240 for you.
Okay.
Michelle, you asked to bring that back up. So
Right.
in our grain sheet, and this is just for my organization, I'm putting, here's the ISBA policy as well as Lakeland's policy.
Okay.
And electronically it's a link for you, and then we copied all of those. So I don't know if you want to start with 1240 or you just want to go back to 3010, which is what we were on last week.
I think it may be more prudent to do 3010 because what ISBA doesn't delineate is actually the duties of the trustees.
Are you talking specifically to 1240 then?
Mhm.
Okay, yeah.
So, because I'd like to have it reflect specifically what the statute says. If there's a way we can do that. Because their reference is just organization and government board of trustees, which I do believe there's a specific statute that says duties of trustees.
Right.
So I don't know why it wouldn't be referenced on the policy, which
And it's
is,
actually titled duty of trustees.
Yes. So
So,
that's fun.
and just for context, ISBA and Lakeland, they're identical, and we have not approved it or reviewed it since 2007, so this
Yeah.
will be an updated policy.
Okay, great.
So we're gonna start with 3010.
No,
Oh.
1240.
Oh, 1240.
And that is I'm just putting them in chronological order, so 1240 is at
Oh,
the
no,
top
no,
of
no.
your list.
No, what I was saying was let's not start with
Oh,
1240.
okay.
I do want it done,
Okay.
but because it's gonna require a lot of research within the statute to make sure we
Okay.
delineate it correctly, I don't wanna waste today's time on just that one. I think we should go back to 30.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, I misunderstood you.
Oh, not a worry.
Now where did I'm sorry, my brain's a little slow this morning. Where did we leave off with 3010? Why did we come back to it? Obviously there was something that,
We didn't finish it. We
Okay.
just felt like there was a lot of language in here. This is a really big deal from a parent standpoint
Oh, yes,
and all
yes,
of that.
yes, yes.
The thing that we talked a lot about is in policy, it has, you guys approved 3005 in 2021, I think, in June of 2021.
okay.
I'll have to go back and look. And ISBA merged, so ISBA only has 3010. We actually have 3005
Oh,
and
yes.
3010. So we
Yes.
have to talk about, do we want to keep those separate? Do we want to merge them? And then the whole February 1st date, March 1st date, when we
Right.
accept those open enrollment
The September thing
applications,
and all
that
that,
whole
yeah.
piece.
Okay.
We wanted to clarify, I think statute says that you have to accept them no later than February 1st. We put the March date, but then I think at one
We
point.
undid it, we went back to what the statute says.
Right, so that was
Right.
kind of our context.
Although it's crossed out on this one, so is there a 3010? Cause I do remember that, we did talk about it.
Online.
And I copied 3005 for you since they really are, there's a lot of the same language, so, which is why ISBA, I assume, merged them. So,
Okay, so 3000, we went over and did the whole 5th grade, 6th grade thing, blah, 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 or 5th birthday, 6th birthday, okay, I was just talking out loud from my brain here. And then had the feedback, okay.
So this.
Thank you, Lynn, for, doing all this and always
oh, thank you.
keeping it in your brain so I can just reference your brain instead of mine.
So just as you guys are thinking about this, okay, so 3005 was adopted on January 14th of 2020, and then 3010 hasn't been reviewed since August 9th of 2010. So again, ISBA
Okay.
only has 3010 instead of, because it duplicates itself, it's pretty redundant. I also copied for you, I think it was Michelle that brought it up last week, we did not have 3010P. and we needed that, and then I also attached to you the 3010F, which is the application for open enrollment, so we added, the state's example and then what Lakeland has, so you have all of that.
Do we have? I don't have 3010F. I have 3010-1A.
Keep going, it should be at the back end, it might be after 3080,
Oops.
cause it's procedure and forms.
Oh, looks like it.
And I thought this one is gonna be the meat of our conversation, cause this is a pretty meaty.
Okay.
You know, our community really has some strong feelings about, out of district enrollment, although I don't know how many students we have out of district, so I think the board needs to consider that, because we don't, by statute, have to allow the out of district enrollment.
Right.
Although I know we have, staff members of the district whose kids come with them and go to school, and, you know, maybe they don't live here, but, I just think that would be a good discussion, for the board to have. I mean, we can still go through all this, but I noticed that there's like this, these people are really like,
Right, especially with class
Very
sizes
good.
just continuing to
Yeah.
grow and all the growth. The
Yeah.
other piece, and this will be part of 3080 that we jump to because it's a cross-reference policy, is the whole concept of out of state because of the border and being right there. And I think you were the one last week that talked about you have people from Newport. I think that's probably a bigger conversation because it's, do you close the borders across the board in all aspects, or, you know, because I don't know at what point, I don't know if at some point we have allowed,
I can see us doing it years ago when we didn't have the population. It just
Right.
wasn't anything to worry about
Right.
right now.
but it is a big deal.
But the population has, as we all know, boomed so much. I don't know, well, anyways.
Yeah,
I
it's
think
a-
being
it's a
able to
hardship.
keep hearing this, I think that the board should be made aware that the policy committee is giving this feedback, and, you know, maybe we need to have that discussion.
And everyone has access to the board policy, all of
Yeah.
the trustees, correct? To the board
Yes,
policy.
yes, absolutely.
Oh, I
Yeah.
think you talked to Bob about that, right?
Yeah, I was gonna show him, where all that was, and,
So they can see all of the feedback, they could see everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was pretty loud and clear in all of the comments.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and there was quite a few that
Right.
seems to be a theme that maybe we should pay attention to, which I really appreciate. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you know, if they don't say anything, we don't know. And that's why we updated the one policy, because when COVID happened, Dr. Meyer came to us and she's like, hey, we gotta do something with this
With all
because
these people wanting
we're
to
getting
come
all
in.
these people like we know don't live here,
Right.
you know. And I know even some in the private schools in Post Falls have a huge population from Spokane, all the way north Spokane. They drive their children to Post Falls just because of the more leniency here and the more, you know.
Yeah. And when we were the only district not doing hybrid,
Yeah.
everybody
Everybody
wanted to come.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was not always fun times talking to parents.
No.
Those are hard conversations, cause
Yeah.
I understand as a parent, you want your kid to be in school, I get it.
Right.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So 3010.
Do we wanna just pull up,
Yeah.
our
Okay, so
revised one?
that would be that one.
Probably, it'll say February, yep.
There's our draft.
I realized that when I label it in the title, but then when we print it, it's not labeled, so now I'm putting, this is ISBA, this is draft, so
Yeah.
it's clear.
That's what we have here.
You want me to go back up so you can start at the beginning?
Yeah, sure, that's fine, I'll set that. And the, oh yeah, I remember now, so the attendance zone transfer we weren't worried about, cause that, in this policy, because it was actually covered in the other policy.
And then again, a lot of the language is the same, so.
Right. And, what, is that the 30/80 policy?
Our open enrollment policy is 3005, and our attendance zone transfers is 30/10.
Okay, so 30/10 is the,
So 30/80 is the out of state.
right, okay, so I'm confused, so if our 30/10 is the attendance zone transfers,
Correct, but
so what language did we put attendance zone transfers in?
no, what she's saying is, if you look, this policy
Mm-hmm.
and our old 30/10
Right,
merged.
right, yeah, no, I get that, what did we do with this language, that's all I wanna know. It's repetitive throughout this policy.
No, it's, so if you go to the very top, it's essentially saying the same thing.
Oh, gotcha.
So
So it
ISBA
is
says
repetitive.
this,
Okay.
I actually liked how ISBA worded it, but
Okay,
then our conversation was, we have to have that date included, the February 1st date in
Right.
there, and we had crossed that out because remember, all the
Right.
feedback was no, so, I just wanted us to look at 3005 and have the conversation of, are we gonna keep them separate, or are we gonna model after ISBA and just combine them, since there is a lot of overlapping language, so. Cause they just delineate out the zone transfers versus open enrollment, and the process is kind of one and the same.
okay, gotcha. Oh, yeah, so it is the.
Well, do we have a highlighter?
Yeah, and W.
Oh yeah, and that was the one that said we had to use the state approved form to, it's taking me a while to do things. Maybe I'm gonna catch up. This is very good.
Oh, well, since she wants to go grab a
We have footnotes too, if that's fine.
that doesn't matter.
I think there's some also in the drawer. In that little pencil. You walked too fast for me.
So where are we at and what are we looking at? We're just doing.
What I was
50,
doing-
30, 10.
Yeah, 30-10. Part of what I was doing was comparing their 3010A2 with our 3010 for my own personal, because
They have multiple versions that we can choose from.
they do,
Okay.
but the A1,
Mhm. Right?
Is specific to accepting.
right,
and
and A2 is
not.
not.
Mhm.
And so
Oh.
what I think, when
So we need to bring both to the board. Because that, oh, sorry, I don't mean to keep cutting you off, go ahead.
No, that's okay. What I was trying to do was see how much of the language is differentiated between the policies, because, yeah, we may want to bring both of them before the board and say, you know, we bring them because there's so much outcry to stop allowing
Right.
out of state or out of district people
Right.
into the district.
Right.
I mean, I think about when I was getting my teeth done, the helper person, not the orthodontist, but I don't know what they're called, orthodontist assistant.
Hygienist?
Maybe, could be. She was talking about how they live in Post Falls, they're kind of on the border, but their older kids graduated Lakeland and they wanted their youngest, which I guess there's quite an age span, to go to Lakeland, and they were really glad they got her in. And it's like, okay, so I mean, I see how that happens, but we have a situation now where we have a student, because of tradition, is coming here, but we're not receiving the tax dollars. And that's huge. And it makes me wonder how much of our population would be lost because we've got lots of kids here from other surrounding areas. And, you know, what do we do with that? Do we grandfather them in? Because I still think that's an outcry. But then, if we're like, that's another issue, you know, there's no
Well, then
happy.
you have, you know, the staff kids.
Right, and what do you do with that?
Right.
Which, I mean, I
Yeah,
don't know.
well, we just have to have, the board has to have
Yeah.
a discussion on that, but I do agree, I think both need to come to the board. It is a big issue. We don't have to allow it based on statute. You know, we have kids here, but then what about like the one comment I just read said, you know, but my student's classroom is at 28 or 30 kids, you know, so then the students that do live within the district are also being impacted by that, right?
Exactly.
Because now they're in a big classroom.
Yep. And I actually knew, this was years back, but a teacher that worked here, she worked at the junior high, but her kids didn't come here. She had them go to the school that they're within their district because, and I don't know if that's, I mean, I get wanting your kids in your district where you're working, but I don't know. So I think we need to bring both of them to the board.
Have that
So,
discussion.
I'm wondering if there's any way you can,
Compare the two.
well, if you can print out the 3010 A2
Yeah.
for us
Do you
so that we
want
can
to? Okay.
bring that,
Mm-hmm.
we can look at it right now with the, so I think we should just go through okay, we're gonna accept
Pull up
what's the language we
ISBAs.
need.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna look at we're not gonna accept them, let's look at the language and then compare the two languages to make sure they're in sync.
Yeah.
Okay.
I will tell you, there's a substantial amount of staff, and I don't know specific to out of district versus zone transfers. I don't know that number, but there are a significant amount that bring their kids with them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and honestly, if they're in district and they're just zone transferring, I don't have a problem with that. But if they don't live here and they're bringing their kids here, our taxpayers are paying their wage and paying to have their kids educated. So we need to bring that to the board and have these conversations, which, you know, is part of this conversation.
Right, absolutely.
So, So the 3010A1 is a merger of our 35, wait, this 3010 is a merger of 3005 and 3010A1.
Mhm.
Okay, got it.
Cause then A2 is specific to not accepting.
Right. On my notes from my last go. So. Must I send it?
Thank you too.
Be sweet, Janelle. Some of the language overlaps as well. What do you need?
It's just a personal preference, never mind.
Well, what do you need?
Do you like more of a convertible tip versus?
Just like more of the jelly type or this.
Okay.
These pens drive me nuts.
It's fine.
No, it's not because I'm totally ill prepared. That's that's what's not fine.
I don't like it
usually
when, I'm a pencil
prepare
person, cause I
myself.
wanna be able, it has to be sharp, and so I
Oh,
run down
yeah.
there constantly, and we all have those.
Well, I actually don't. I don't mind using the mechanical pencils because then I can always just do my thing. But I found what's funny is the littles don't. They're like, "Girl, this is not a pencil." I'm like, "Yes, it is," and they're like, "Break, break, break." So I found really thick leaded ones
Oh.
that don't break. So I'm like, you need to use the mechanical one. The little ones like.
I have to tell myself I can't use the normal ones either, I break them all the time, that's why I have to do these. Cause I write hard, I think.
Product variety for you to choose from, so.
What? I'll stick with this one. It's all good. They're the same.
Oh, they are?
Yeah,
Okay.
they're all the same.
Okay.
But thank you for trying. I appreciate it. No, you're good. It's your
It's
pen.
right, it doesn't matter, I get a bazillion
Yes.
of them, and you can write with it,
Oh,
you can
you're
leave
amazing.
it.
Thank you.
It's one of those buy our pens with your company name,
Oh, yes,
you know, so
yes.
I get a ton of them constantly.
Got it.
And that's the other end of it is actually a rubber stylus to use that.
Yeah. Got it.
Fancy.
So give me your funky pen there, which I don't really, my kids call that first world problems.
What is it called?
First world problems.
Yeah.
Cause they're always saying, you know, look at some,
Right.
yeah, Africa, you know, South
Yeah.
America, and they're like, oh, first world problem.
People write with sticks. And,
Hey, that's good perspective.
Mm-hmm.
It's all relative.
No, thank you.
Oh,
You're good. You're absolutely good. It's okay. You did try. You gave an amount. You gave much effort. Thank you so much. Just ignore me. Today is stressful.
Ramona found them for her, you know,
Or there's these guys.
that she likes.
That might be.
This might work.
Lines?
Move this one here. Have your special. Okay.
So we have success.
Yeah. Okay. Successful. Thank you. Even not finding one is successful. No.
This really drives me nuts. They keep flip-flopping back and forth between your home school and your, what was the other school they called it? Your attendance zone school. It's like, well, what are we gonna call it?
Wait, so you're on a P?
Yeah, I just grabbed this
Okay.
to look through it
Well, I went
because
back
it was
to.
shorter.
Gotcha.
Yeah, the language is not easy, I think.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it
How
can
they're
be
deciphering
confusing,
between.
yeah.
Maybe that's what we should just do. is-
And that's the other thing we hear a lot of is like, you know, so we have to try and write it just for the,
Yeah.
General public.
yeah. So anybody, and I think that's why, referencing some of the language from other policies is good because, you know, for them to go on the
Mhm.
policy trail is
Right.
daunting also.
Well, and you can tell when policies haven't been updated because the languages are very different in some policies.
Mhm.
Like, well, who wrote this? Why did they think about what someone would be reading? Maybe they did, maybe they didn't care. Who knows? Okay. So I think
We
this
definitely want to be
is-
clear for parents.
There we are. Okay, so. Oh yeah, this is, okay, so I'm just gonna kind of. Do you have, oh, you don't, okay, that's fine.
Oh wow. Poor John, he's being blamed for everything I do on my Chromebook.
Java?
John Schaefer, the old, that it was it because that's who the district still has assigned to this book. I was just looking to see when the last time was they fetched my data that they're not tracking. And it says assigned to board member 3, John Schaefer. So it's like, well, I didn't do it, John did it.
Fetching is a funny word to me.
That is a.
When I think it was you that said that's the technical term, I'm like, what an interesting use of fetching.
Well, the technology world
Mhm.
names everything just like our world.
Mhm.
Pronouns are he, she, they, them. You know, you have parent, children, grandchildren. So the whole technology world uses the same descriptive language that we use for humans. Human interaction, it's the same thing.
Mhm.
Yeah, there would be some interesting discussions.
It's just interesting, the word fetching. I
Yeah.
mean, I
They
think
use
when
it
you
for
first said it, I
examples.
thought, really, that's a technical word?
Yeah, when
Fetching?
they're fetching the data, yeah.
I mean, it makes sense,
Yeah.
but it's just an interesting word
Yeah.
choice.
Yeah. So the discussion, I remember stopping one time saying, can we just use some other language because it was a little too much to talk about orphan children and because that's what you call them when there's no parent record attached to it. It's an orphan child, right? And when you discarded something, they used controversial A word.
Mhm.
Oh, well.
Yeah, you know, so you're talking about parents and children and grandchildren and these children and orphan children, I'm like, wow.
Yeah, you'd think there would be some different terminology.
And we do talk about machines like that. I mean, I do it all the time. He, you know, for whatever reason, the server's always he. He's doing this again. It's a weird world.
That it is.
And new goodie bags for all the
Okay.
students for tonight. Just some of them, you know, so just.
I don't understand why this policy of not receiving pupils, students, goes into why it has re-enrollment and students' rights and responsibilities.
That's actually why I didn't copy it,
It's
cause I
like-
felt like that, doesn't that the moment you say non-accepting,
Right.
then it excludes all the others.
Right, like why?
Right, and a lot of it is one and the same, and so I just did the one and said, we just have to make that decision, but it does feel like, it seems odd that there's all of those qualifiers, and at the very top you've said,
There isn't any. We
Right.
have none.
right, yeah, so.
See what I'm saying? It's like, why would we go on to explain about transportation and sports and the application approval process when the whole thing is that,
Yeah, if they're not coming, they're not coming, it doesn't, none of the other things apply.
I mean, I'm not understanding their thought process on this.
Well, then what they may have done is they may have just, because in the first paragraph, this highlight is
Yeah.
the difference. That's it. And then they have a little caveat paragraph that says this district will not receive non-resident students under the state's open enrollment options program.
That should be it, right?
Otherwise, it's pretty.
But we do need to, but this is also addressing open enrollment by students who reside within the district, because we're addressing the transfers.
Right, but it's titled, but what I'm saying is,
Yeah.
this says, A2 says we're not doing it, and
A1
A1
says
says we are. And
Right.
it's basically the same language, except for we're not, and here's why we're.
Right, but the reality is, this is, well, there's obviously more to, there's way more in the A1, because we're targeting different things, but, I'm planning on 3010, which is good, because you need to get there so that you can see my incredible changes. Cause I
Okay.
haven't made any changes just yet on A1, but,
We wanna go
Did you go
with eyes.
what?
Did you do it on the computer?
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay.
You had it up, I think it's right there.
Yeah, you do have it up, cause your changes are.
So,
Okay, so there I am. So, what I feel is that I wanna strike this out. Because it should read, it's about the zone, so the Board of Trustees recognizes that some of its patrons may want to enroll their children in a different school than the zone in which they reside.
Mm-hmm.
That just seems more cleaner,
It's clear,
yeah.
there's clarity.
And when I did this, the other one I did was. I hate that word.
They
Yeah.
put a lot of that's in there.
I know, it's cause they don't know how to write.
I have a friend who's a retired teacher, but her degree, she taught English. Yeah, and she will just like chew your finger all up and spit it back. And that is one of her pet peeves. That, it's like, no.
Yeah.
And commas before and, like when you do, you know, the blue dog, the red dog, comma, and the white dog, oh, no, no, no. It's like, oh, that's acceptable. I actually take the comma out every time.
Well, apparently, when I went back to school, they, one of the universities, one of the prestigious universities, decided to change some of the rules and move forward that was acceptable. So then everybody was scrambling to try and figure out, well, they're doing it this way here, and it was just like, okay,
And you wonder why the English language is one of the hardest.
right? Okay, so the other change I made was over here. We took this out, and by statute, and I need to make sure this is fluid, but an open enrollment application must be submitted annually
Mhm.
for admission to a specific school no later than February 1 for enrollment in the following school year.
Yeah, can you scroll?
Do you want me to pull up, can we pull up the statute, so just to make sure, is that what you wanted to do, is pull it
Oh,
up? Or do you have it
that's
up?
the language.
Okay.
If you go to page 2, there we are.
Okay.
And then the statute specifically states,
Mhm.
the application, accompanied by pupils,
You did in
must be submitted.
5. That's why,
Okay.
Yeah, must be submitted to the receiving school district by February 1 for enrollment during the following school year. So, I put no later than February 1 for enrollment in the following school year. Cause the way they're writing it, it says, written it down,
They writ it
February
down.
1 for enrollment during the following school year. That doesn't make sense. Because if we're receiving something by February 1, it's my understanding during the following school year, what they're saying is you submit it by February 1 so your kiddo can enroll in September 1 and go to school. But during the following school year means that you started school in September and we're not getting around to it until February 1. It's very, it's not.
and there is in statute, there is a waiver, they talk about having a waiver specific to that timeline that
Right.
the superintendent, and I think that's actually in 3005 as well. So, but yeah, it doesn't, it reads weird.
So it says the deadline shall be waived in the case of students who move out of their attendance zone during the school year.
And that
Which-
happens a lot.
I don't understand what that means because if you're, so is this saying that,
What are you looking for? I found it.
Okay.
Page.
so this is what I would perceive happening is that, I register my kid at, Twin Lakes and then we buy a billion acres and we move and my kid now needs to go to Garwood. So I would think what I'm supposed to do is pull my kid out of Twin Lakes, bump them over to Garwood.
Right.
Or if I don't tell anybody, I just keep shuffling my kid to Garwood or to Twin Lakes every day until the end of the year when I then apply for my kid to go to Garwood.
Well, you wouldn't have to apply to go to Garwood, because if you were zoned for Garwood, you just get to go. You'd apply if you wanted to keep your child at Twin. So
Okay.
like, I'm a 4th grader,
Right?
and I've been at Twin since kindergarten.
Right.
And my entire graduating class I've been with since kinder, and so now I'm gonna be going into 5th grade. I've just now moved to Garwood, but I wanna do my 5th grade year at Twin, because all my
Right.
friends are there.
Right.
So if you move in the Garwood zone, you just, you enroll in, because that's where you now live. If you wanna stay at Twin, you'd have to do a zone transfer.
Okay, but that's a zone transfer. I
Mhm.
think the February 1st is specific
It
to.
is specific to open enrollment.
Right,
Mhm.
so I want to move my kid to the Coeur d'Alene School District, but I live in Rathdrum. So that's where this February 1 deadline comes into effect. However, what I'm trying to understand is I think you're saying that the waiver could occur because I pull my kid out in March and I want him to finish March, April, May, June and Coeur d'Alene.
Because I've moved now. Well, and if the moving, if I'm in Lakeland and I move to Coeur d'Alene, then you're applying for that open enrollment. Oftentimes, we don't hear about those unless we were to get wind of it. The parent will just finish out the school year and then they'll re-enroll in Coeur d'Alene. We hear about it oftentimes when it's, again, I'm a 4th grader and now I'm living with dad, mom lives in Lakeland and dad maybe, and now I'm living with dad. And I want to stay in Lakeland, and so we do those proof of residencies in August for registration. We do it throughout the year if we hear that there is a move or if a parent tells us, but otherwise that proof of residency is in that initial enrollment. So if you enroll at various times, you have to do it, but once you've shown it one time, we don't have that ongoing reoccurrence of checking for proof of residency. Does that make sense?
Within the school year.
Within the school year. Unless we get wind of something. But if somebody doesn't tell you, we wouldn't have any idea. Because we have situations where people will drop their kid off at the bus stop that they've always attended.
Oh, wow.
And so they're still, you know, so nobody knows that they've moved. That's where it gets really muddy.
Where were you reading that? Sorry, my brain was somewhere else. This big discussion you guys were talking about the waiver thing or whatever you were bringing up. Are you still in the first paragraph or are you talking about statute?
No, I'm not on the first paragraph. I jumped over to the application approval process.
Okay, right here, okay.
But then what I was questioning, this deadline shall be waived in the case of students who move out of their attendance zone during the school year, and the applicability of what that really means.
It's
But we
crossed out though, right?
It is crossed out, but
Okay.
I think what Lynn was saying is it's in statute, and so, but if we could just start at the top, work our way through the language of 3010, that way we can then jump over to A2, which is the we're not taking your kid, and make all those corrections
Okay.
to accommodate the, you know, making it clear so parents understand we're not taking out of district students, and then we can present both to the board with the recommendation that, you know, the majority of parents are tired of the overcrowding and allowing kids in that aren't in this district. And so we've presented both. Our suggestion would, I don't even know what our suggestion would be. It sounds like our suggestion would be to go with the don't allow out of district students in. But then allowing the board to discuss what maybe the board feels is in the best interest of the district.
My only, again, this is your guys' decision, but
Well, no,
you know, when you're
we
thinking
are
of-
the committee.
Right.
It's not our decision.
I feel like we have to have that somewhat of a grandfather clause because we do have like juniors and seniors that they, you know, that's their high school experience. Or
Right.
we have 5th graders that are at an elementary school or an 8th grader. I would just hate to say, okay, we're gonna disrupt this is where you've always been.
I don't think we're making a decision here. I think what Michelle's saying is that when we bring this to the board,
Right.
explain, here's all the feedback we got,
Right.
here's the reality of the situation.
Right. So that they have all of the facts.
Right, exactly, yeah. It's not
Right.
that we're making the decision,
Right.
it's just to talk out loud, why are we presenting this to the board? Well,
Right.
and what are the options?
Right.
You know, and how do we
But
deal with it?
respecting what you're saying, I think it would be easier for me to propose a grandfather clause for high school,
Mhm.
not at elementary level,
Mhm.
and not at junior high
Cause
level.
at some point you have to start.
You have to move, and I would think that in all fairness, you know, finish out the year and then off to your own school, but if you're in high school, yes, I can appreciate I mean, you got a 4-year block, so we're committed for 4 years,
Mhm.
if that is actually a freshman. But no, I just don't, cause if you grandfather it in, and we're going all the way back to kindergarten,
You're right.
that's, I don't think realistic, but respecting the social aspect of high school and what that means in transitioning into college. I mean,
Right.
yeah, I can respect that, but
The other caveat to that, and again, to Ramona's point of just having all the facts, is then the conversation is about the siblings, cause you accept one, and then so, I mean, it is a layered decision for sure. You know what I mean? So,
right,
yeah.
but in respect to that, if my freshman daughter, and then I have a 7th grade boy, well,
Right.
you know, so yeah, I hear your layers, I do understand that.
Right.
But then we do also have to have that discussion with, what about out of district educators, you know? So that I think is gonna be more concerning, because I don't wanna lose a teacher,
Right.
but then again, it has to stop. I mean, it
At
really
some point you have,
does.
I hear you.
And yeah, we wanna be all inclusive and all accepting, but not when we can't support them financially.
Right.
And the reality is, I don't think the board has any knowledge of how many out-of-district kids are in our district. Because I think we've asked for it, and I know what we got this last go-around was specific to enrollment for this specific year. We got a spreadsheet, which
Okay.
was a little confusing in the sense that,
Well, we were told both, but that's, I remember we were told there wasn't any, and then when we got the
Oh, right.
information, we looked,
Right.
and it's like, no, we really do have.
yeah, that, you are correct, yeah, because we had been told we don't have any, but yet we got the spreadsheet that said, looky here. But we don't know on a grand scale,
Mhm.
how many numbers are we talking about?
Right, right.
Because I can't imagine, I mean, from the outcry of the public, I would imagine it's a pretty high number, like over 1, maybe 200. I don't know.
I can't speak to that, I don't know.
No, I hear you.
Mhm.
I don't know. But if we're talking 10 kids,
Right.
that's a different conversation of, is this really a big issue?
Right.
But given that the people that are willing to support this district and take the time and look at these policies,
100%.
you know, it's like their voice is heard.
Right.
So, yeah, we really do need to have
Right.
that information presented as well.
And just being transparent, I
Mhm.
have one of those kids that's in high school. So,
Oh, you're out of district?
I just moved.
Oh, no.
Mhm.
Okay. What grade?
He's a sophomore right now.
Oh,
So.
it's okay.
But I just had to put it out there. I am
Oh.
one of those people, so.
I hear you. Well, and I know that my daughter did an in-district transfer, because mine should be going to Spirit Lake, but they're at Twin Lakes, and she would like that to remain.
Right. But
You know,
since we're having this
No, no, no.
conversation, I just feel like I needed to be transparent,
Yeah.
but like it wouldn't be ethical if I didn't tell you I'm potentially one of those people. So.
yeah, no, I could absolutely respect the high school
Right.
position, because you've got 4 years and you're done.
Right.
Either way, it's a discussion we really
Right.
need to be having with the board.
Right, exactly, we do.
Yeah.
So we need to
But
lay
we
it all
need to
out.
also give the board that data.
Right.
They need to know how many kids will these policies affect.
Right, and we can charge tuition. I know we've been told several times that we can't, but yeah, we can. We can charge these people to enter the district.
Seriously?
Yeah, it's in statute, over and over and over. It tells you how to do it, as long as there's a policy in place, procedure in place, that it's clear, 33-1404, 1403. Is, even with neighboring districts, out of state, in state, as long as there's an agreement between the districts, We can say, okay, sure, that district has to pay for the kids.
Well, that's it. So we would, so then the parent wouldn't be charged, it's the neighboring
Right.
district that's charged. Okay.
Right, right.
Cause I was told that we used to charge.
We did used to, and I think it was the parent, I didn't think it was the school district.
Okay.
Yeah, it
Okay.
says, it shall authorize the receiving district to charge or bill for the tuition of its non-resident pupils, where tuition is not, but where did it go? And the, State Department of Education has all the forms, maybe it was in the other one. Yeah, so the State Department determines the amount, for the creditor school, which
Okay.
would be by this, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's fairly, let me go back to the other one.
I wonder though if that, again, Lisa would know this better, just
Mhm.
historically, what we used to do, to my knowledge, since
I
I've
think
been
it was
here.
charging the parents, I don't think it was the
I'm almost
district.
100% sure, because I think if you
'Cause I
charge
know it
the
got shut
district, they
down.
just said no,
Right,
because they're not gonna give it, they're
Right.
not gonna accept it, so.
Right.
Then it was, if we're gonna do this, then the parents would have to pay that fee, and to my knowledge, it was substantial, but I can't give you any specifics, cause this was well before my time.
wow.
But
Thank you
Lisa
for
would
public
know.
education, huh? Because it would seem reasonable that the other district should pay, because they're getting the tax dollars for the student.
Right. But instead of doing that, they just said, nope, I won't, they're gonna have to come here, I'm not gonna accept it, we won't accept the open enrollment. But again, Lisa could speak to this better than myself, just because I wasn't here, and the specifics of procedurals, cause we
Mhm.
haven't done it for a long time.
Right, right.
Yeah, and then they have, tuition certificates that come through, the Department of Education to determine all of this.
Okay.
The board of the school district may request a waiver from the state board of any portion of the tuition rate determined pursuant to this section. A waiver request must be made for each individual student. They're good for up to 4 years. There's an annual review by the local board of trustees. Waivers have to be requested by April 1 of the prior year to the operative year.
Are you looking at which?
1405.
Okay, I'm on
Mhm.
1402.
Yeah, so 1402, yeah, does speak to it also, and
Right.
1404. So it looks like there's,
1405 seems like it has more details.
yeah, 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 I mean, there's a provision for recovering the money when the money is not paid, there's, I mean, that's a lot to get into. I mean, it's there, but it would definitely be, that many more policies and understanding and.
Well, then we would also want to, we need to find out if our finance department has a way of being able to
To collect that.
track the student, collect it, make sure that it's paid. I mean, because that's another
Right,
layer in their job description, so to speak.
right.
If it's nothing we've ever done before, do we have a system in place to be able to do this? Or can we adopt a system rather quickly?
Mm-hmm. I'll follow up with Brian and find out if cause wasn't he a board member when that
Mhm.
happened? So maybe he knows what they did.
I mean, I don't
Or,
know.
and did Coeur d'Alene do the same thing when he was their finance?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he was a board member when they were billing
Mm-hmm.
parents. And then I know that, cause Becky's the one that said, she told me, she's like, yeah, when I got here, they were billing parents and you can't do that, so I made them stop.
Mm-hmm.
So, that was, cause that's when she's like, oh no, you could bill, and I'm like, what? Wait a minute.
But it makes sense
But
to
it's
build
the
the
district.
school.
Yeah. Yeah, charging the school seems
Makes sense,
reasonable.
right, because
Yeah.
they're getting money.
They're getting the tax dollars, and those tax dollars should be coming over this
And
way.
that's why the State Department of Education is the one that defines all that
Right.
according to the statute, so they
Right.
lay it all out and say, here's what you can bill,
Right,
kind of thing. I mean, if we wanna go down that trail,
yeah,
which I think would be a lot of work, but
I think it would be an extremely a lot of
Yeah.
work.
And based on parent feedback, that's not going to address the
Right.
overcrowding or.
Right,
you know,
exactly.
Correct, it would,
Yeah.
but it would also bring in the revenue that a lot of people are like,
Right,
my tax dollars paid.
that aspect of it
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So going back to 3010, I want us to include it under the first paragraph.
back to the first paragraph,
The first paragraph.
okay.
Oh, that's what it does. I wish the keys worked.
So we posted the agenda for the, meeting Tuesday.
I was gonna do that today.
Yeah. I was having problems with this thing staying connected. My only, I know we're sort of off topic, but I thought I'd bring it up. Well, we'll talk about it after this, I guess. It was just a switching the arrangement of something, that's all.
So what I've done in the first paragraph is I've highlighted Board of Trustees shall consider, because the board has never been
Right.
presented with any transfers, and I think that needs to be, the board needs to understand its duty there. And then, in this district, the whole expulsion thing is not eligible for open enrollment under this policy, they're just not eligible for open enrollment by statute.
Right.
So we don't need to add under this policy.
Right.
Then we're taking out attendance zone transfers because we've addressed it up in the open enrollment section. Transportation.
Should we make a key specific, because this one will go to, the board of, like, your green is just additional language, your yellow,
I can explain
Okay.
that to them, yeah.
okay.
I just did it to make sure I knew what words
Okay.
I actually added to the policy, or what anybody added to the language.
But just clarifying, we're not sending this out for stakeholder input because we already received it, but let's just say this was a brand new policy, this would be the first revision. The version that goes out to the public would just be the clean version?
Correct.
Without any color coding, or just
Correct.
would we, if whatever new we added, would we have that be a color, or we just send all black and say this is the proposed revision? Do we delineate new versus old?
Well, and my thought is, I don't mind delineating what we're adding, but then you would need to delineate what we've taken out.
Which is what?
Which is frustrating to them because they don't understand the whole thing. So I think if you say this is the new policy that's being presented, we can state there have been some revisions, so please read it. Or we can give them, you know, some lead in. We can even say, you know, none of the language has been changed from the prior policy. We can give them some guidelines, but I want them to have a clean copy so that they're not like, what are they doing and why are they doing it this
That
way?
makes sense to me, I just wanted to
What's in
double
the book?
check.
Is that fruit?
Yep.
Great.
Would you like me to dish you up some?
You're amazing.
I am.
You are.
Nobody's
are.
taking the carbs, huh?
I can't eat any of that. I'm
My-
allergic to it.
Zachary will be really happy. So.
Yeah.
Well, I forgot that you had been to Green Food, and I toasted an English muffin, ate it on my way to drop kiddos off, ate it as it was getting cold all the way.
Ramona had oatmeal doing the same thing.
Yep.
Leaving her lane.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Can you open this one? Oh, you can't. Oh, they're done both ways.
Okay, somebody opened it on both sides.
There you go. Okay. Anybody else want fruit? Jill, would you like some?
Thank you so much.
Yep.
You know, we should probably put a note that, to the agenda, where these policies are gonna be, that, if the trustees read the 33-1400s, it'll give them something to have more understanding before we, you know, get to the meeting. I don't know, we always have so much to read, but there's a lot of information in there.
Would it be helpful, are you just saying specific to this policy or just in general, if there's an Idaho code linked, we have,
No.
Just
But I think
specific
this
to
one,
this one,
because it's
okay.
so,
I'll let Janelle know to add. Do you think 33-1402 or 1405?
I think all the 1400s are applicable.
least you could say, you know, specific, kind to the 02, 03, 04, and 05. So, ineligibility is only on the varsity level?
So, in two different policies, I have to call one of the principals to ask that question. My understanding is yes, but I'm not a secondary person, so I don't know that you can do an accurate answer. In 3005, we had varsity, and then in 3010, just had sports. So I don't know, do you want me to call Mr. Everett and ask that question?
Because I don't say
Right.
varsity for everyone.
Hi, Mr. Arlene, we are hearing policy. So we have a question, the ineligibility with our athletes, is that just for varsity or is it all levels? Okay. Okay. At all levels. Perfect, thank you. Okay, bye. It's not just sports, it's all activities, it's all sports at all levels. So they really try to coach the kids to, you know, if you're a freshman and you're struggling, really try to support them in getting those grades up and doing what they need to do so that all of it is not just athletics.
Okay, so then let's change some language up here. I don't know that this is accurate though, I'm just gonna know what it is. What is that? Because what I'm reading, or how I'm reading this is, it should be starting as, if like, someone is in an activity, they transfer school, chances of them getting into that same activity, they may be benched, so to speak, for a year. The way I read this is, if you're just coming into the school and you're anticipating getting into an activity, you might not be able to. Is that accurate? So if a new student that's never been participating in an activity comes to a school, and now all of a sudden they want to participate in the activity, we're gonna hold them for a year?
I don't think so, I think it would totally depend on, I mean, if, you know, like, right now basketball season is almost over, so if you are, depending on when you show up and it's that season, probably because it's almost over and the
Right.
time of it. But no, I think if they wanna start and it's new, they're allowed to start, it's not, we're not holding them out for a year.
Or is it,
Certain schools
so
1 year.
So my question is like, for sports, so if someone played soccer here and they're not happy with the program, so they wanna transfer Coeur d'Alene to play soccer. Just because they wanna go to the better program or the winning
So
program?
then that's when SAA starts to get involved, you know, because what they don't want is recruiting happening at the high school level and all of that, so.
Okay, so would this statement pertain to something like that? Versus just a general?
I think it's probably a general statement, it's probably irrelevant of whether you're in sport or not in sport, if you move.
You run
It's a
this.
year, yeah, no matter what, is what I'm understanding, but I'm looking
Okay.
to see if,
Well, so, I mean, honestly, this is, we're putting a burden on the student to make sure that, you know, if they wanna come over and they're concerned about their participation over in school A and how it's gonna reflect in school B, it is their duty to look into that. But the way it reads is like, if you come over and you wanna, at least from my perspective, is, cause it says any student who is anticipating in extracurricular activities. So that means that they haven't been previously, to me. Cause if you're, it doesn't say that, but it could be interpreted that way. And I don't wanna discourage anybody from,
Right.
you know, but moving on. But yeah, we'll,
I feel like it can really just support kids being involved as much as they can.
Exactly,
So.
exactly. But at the high school level, there's that competition issue, yeah. And who has better program and where might be scouted better and, you
Well, it
know.
doesn't feel like you're trying to stack the deck.
Right, right,
And you're recruiting and, yep.
yeah. Okay, so what statute could that be? Oh, well, that's interesting, cause it states in 33-1402, upon agreement between the resident, this is that whole, there's also the 60-day clause, that we have to give a written notice of denial. But it says upon agreement between the resident and the non-resident school boards, or between the affected schools within the home district, the deadline for application may be waived. So, but that's not what we're saying. I mean, we lined it out, but we were saying.
I feel like in 3005 you said that.
Maybe. Where's? Says it is the board's intent to allow waiver of the application acceptance period for a continuous acceptance of open enrollment applications when classroom space is available. The application acceptance periods may be waived with the mutual agreement of the school district and the district in which the student resides, or between principals, or an in-district transfer. Okay, so we do say more in here than, because what we said in here was the deadline shall be waived in the case of students who move out of their attendance zone during the school year. So I do think we need to include language needs to be more in line with the statute.
Do you feel like it's beneficial to merge 3005 and 3010, or do you keep them separate?
Well, I think if we wanna remain consistent, we should merge them. I don't know that, cause our 3005 was, or, in front of my face, is, oh. It is their 30010. And our previous 30010 was specific to transfers.
Well, you mean ours or theirs?
Ours was attendance zone transfers.
Yes.
So I think combining them, because it is basically a redundancy, that is, yeah, that's fine.
Right, and our 3010 still references No Child Left Behind, and yeah, it's pretty.
Which didn't that get renamed? Okay.
Every student succeeds after that, ESSA.
Yep. So, and again, the last revision was in 2010, so it's pretty outdated.
Yes,
And then there is a lot of overlapping language.
yeah. So I don't think there's a problem in combining the open enrollment and the transfers, because then depending on which way the board goes,
Right.
it's all there.
So then we'll just have to make sure we talk to Dane once this is approved by the board that we're taking off 3005. So we don't lose sight of that and forget.
And we would need to
And board to approve.
Then
And board would have to approve the removal of 3005. We just don't want to forget that, because it's a little piece to the puzzle.
Okay. I know it's laid out, but. Where's my, keyword? Alright, so. Green.
Oh, I can't find any of that, but we'll just go. I think I'm good right now, I'm already debating, thank you though. So which one did you have open, Janelle? I don't know, I need to see its actual. Options, okay. February 2022 and 2021.
Do you want us to split the screen and put them side by side?
No, what I'm doing is I'm trying to find it so I can put, IHSAAs, they're the ones that make the determination, they're the ones that called out varsity. There is a difference, there's an exception to the transfer rule for varsity.
Okay.
It's 8-4,
So
or
it
it's
would be,
8-14-11.
so it would be this one, the
Right.
Melissa Gilmer and then Michelle did the last hit.
But you need, I see that in statute, but IHSSA
Mm-hmm.
is what governs over.
Right.
And so, if their rules are contradicting this statute, then that's a whole.
What do you mean see by in statute?
Well, cause you said that in statute, there's exceptions, acceptance, that there's the rule.
Mm-hmm.
What I thought I heard you say was that in statute, there is a delineation between varsity and university, and that there's some exceptions, not acceptance, exceptions. But I may have misunderstood you because I was focused on.
Yeah, I don't know that, I saw that in statute.
Okay, so on the application acceptance process, as we did line out, the whole deadline thing, so what I added is, the deadline shall be waived upon an agreement between the resident and non-resident board of trustees, or between the two schools affected within the district, within the same district.
So our process typically is if somebody wants to do a zone transfer, I'm the receiving school, they wanna come to my school, then the principal of the home school will call me and say, hey, we have this, can you sign off and accept it, and then we go through that procedure, so.
Yeah.
And at this point, they all funnel through me, so I'm watching the enrollment numbers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, what I didn't like about our previous statement is, it says the deadline shall be waived in the case of students who move out of the attendance zone during the school year. Well, that's just a blanket, which isn't what statute says. So there is a reason to, when it can be waived, which if it's within district, we're just doing our thing. It's not that big of a deal.
Right.
But I think we're.
The statute is specific to open enrollment, correct?
Mhm. And that's what this is specific to, open enrollment. Which I don't know how open enrollment, well, yeah, okay. Thinking out loud.
Their rules are pretty detailed and distinct when it comes to transfers.
Yeah. I put a link in there, I mean, this was the main language I was talking about between the varsity and all that, but, I mean, they're talking about, school boundaries and parent parent separation or divorce, a child on their own or not on their own, I was trying to look at where.
Which are all variables that are at play.
Right, yeah, there's, non-member school, discontinued schools, official change in boundaries, parent move to create eligibility, which is apart from, but I did look at the waiver of transfer, because that's where they had the transfer standards. I think it's supposed to be students, I don't know, transfer standards may be eligible to participate in their scholastic activities or athletics or specific activities, and then it's underlined, except varsity level. In activities in which he or she competed, tried out for, or participated on any organized club, school, or otherwise scheduled team during 12 months preceding the date of transfer, provided eligibility is approved by the principal of both sending and receiving school and the board of directors, and further provided that there is no participation purpose involved in the transfer.
So that's ensuring that at the state, the highest level, they're not stacking a team. That impacts state.
Yeah, a student who is eligible for non-varsity competition only is ineligible for district and state competition, all under transfer, waiver of transfer. Probably good, because theirs are so delineated in how you can or can't play that.
District. So should the IHSAA also be a reference at the bottom?
Yeah, I guess we should reference them.
I would say.
Yeah. And I think too, maybe, can go forward when we hit these kind of, where we have all this outside input that's not like DAPA or the statute, maybe what we do is just make a simple statement that, like in this instance, we just make a simple statement, blah, 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 these activities, or this, not activity, but this thing, whatever you wanna call it, is also governed by blah, blah, blah rules,
So we're just
Just
saying what the
yeah,
reference is.
instead of trying to understand what, although we need to understand some, so we can explain when we come to the board, but I don't know that we have to.
Right.
And then that way it keeps us from having to go back, oh, they changed something, now we gotta go back and change something. Don't you think we should do, just make it more simple going forward, that if we hit an area that's so delineated, out of our control, we just say, hey, you need to,
Right.
we accept it, but you need to figure out here because you might be negatively impacted or whatever.
Yes.
There will be an impact.
Right.
If it's out of our control, we just,
That doesn't, of course, does not have to change the policy,
Right.
like IHSAA changed theirs, we
Right.
just referenced it.
Right.
Unless there obviously is something that we put that changes, but.
yeah, it might be. I mean, unfortunately, we have to understand probably more than we'll ever use, just for explanation purposes,
But it's definitely cleaner that way,
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, do we just put it off, and then that way it's not really, because it's not really governed by the school, but the school and the students are impacted by that thing, right? So the district's just like, well, just like through COVID when they made
rule change and said, hey, if you don't wear your mask or whatever it was, nobody gets to play with you. Well, we couldn't punish our students, you know, so it's like, okay, that's out of our hands, you know, they can do whatever. I mean, I need to.
Should it be a cross-reference, just as
I think it should, well, this is just my 2 cents, I think it should be a cross-reference, but I also feel like in the narrative specifically of where the chunk of the word, then we just say, please see, just like we do if we're referencing another policy, cause I don't know that they'll go down there always.
Well, we would want to have it listed in a
Cross-reference, but then also in the narrative as well, do you think, in both?
Well, it is listed in the narrative already.
Yes, but her specific, like, in the future, like, if it isn't, we added
Oh,
both in
yes,
the narrative and
yes,
the body,
yes,
yeah.
yes.
Sorry, I wasn't saying specific to this, just generalizing specifically, if it isn't, we do that, so it's in both.
And then I would right here, I would go down one more line, because those first two are district policies. There you go.
just,
I don't know if, she's got it up here. So it's, 8-14-14.
8-14-14.
It's Rule 8, individual eligibility. So I would just take out the 8-14-14 and 9. And type Rule 8, because that's what it's called. And then I would go over and title it individual eligibility. And then IHSAA, correct. Yeah.
You could put a link.
True. So
Is it reference in the top, is it spelled out on the top?
yeah, it is.
Okay. So how do you spell that again in reference?
I'm just trying to think, we often list it. Actually, here's what we would do. So. There we go, that makes me feel better.
Okay, gotcha.
There we go.
Okay.
That makes more sense to me.
Yeah.
Rule 8 just seemed arbitrary, kind of
Right.
random.
Yeah, like you Google it.
Do you ever watch NCIS?
Oh, gosh, yes, no. Rule 99, kids rules.
You were writing that, that's what I mean.
What, you don't know Rule 21?
So, I did change it to further, further non-varsity participants, because it could be not an athlete, it could be some other organization.
Yep.
Or club.
Perfect. move out of their attendance zone and not top sentence.
It said out of their school attendance zone, and I didn't like our schools.
Yeah. I think that sentence alone will help because that happens all the time.
Okay.
And so then as the principal, you get wind of it and you have to have those uncomfortable conversations and. I told my husband this morning, I just wanna make it to Saturday morning.
Yeah.
So I can sleep in.
Good.
I have senior night tonight, so it's gonna be a long night.
So where are you at now?
I'm on page, 3.
Okay, so can we go back up to page 2 there and that right, down, at the bottom there where that number, yeah. So it says, in situations where class size is limited, the superintendent may give priority to certain students. And then it gives these priorities.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, never mind, okay. Right, I was thinking, right, cause what I was thinking when we were talking about open enrollment, so these are the prioritization of how they are, but we always give priority to our own students. Okay, that's fine.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, I did it too. Okay, useful. Thank you.
And even we would give priority to the zone transfer over and enrollment.
Yeah.
Because they are our Lakeland.
Right, yeah, okay, yeah, that's what I just wanted to make sure that we, but after I get back to it, okay. That's all I have there.
Sorry.
Something really funny.
Neither the district nor its employees will not take negative. Yeah.
So does that mean they will?
She's lower.
Yeah, I'm under recruiting potential.
Will not take.
And I'm just telling you, that was
That's what I said.
I know that.
I did not
That's
change
why
that, and I read it, and I was like, well.
That's why I was saying, we can't just accept it blindly. It's like, who wrote this? No, I knew the color, I knew it wasn't me. I knew we would have done that, and if it were on our own policy, well, we didn't do it.
I had a question on, a couple of revoking the transfer. At the end, it says the board may review the superintendent's decision. Like, how does that happen? How does the parent, guardian, whomever get to the board and say, hey, we don't like this decision, or at what, like, where's the info on that? You know, how does it happen? When does it happen? What's the procedure for it happening? Like, that's a pretty vague statement for a very involved, in my brain, situation, so we probably need to figure that Yeah, I mean, so I guess the other point would be that, oh, I know maybe where it would happen, and maybe we need to say that. So the superintendent makes the decision. The
Right.
policy is stated throughout, I believe, statute that those decisions always come to the board anyways, just like any recommendation, you know, that she makes. So maybe at that point is when the board would say, oh,
Like
well,
in
we're-
your superintendent's report.
yeah, like we appreciate, well, it would be, no, it would be, we're supposed to see all of these. The board, or the board, I should say, not the committee.
Right.
The board is supposed to see all of these transfers and approve every one. Obviously, I don't know that the board's ever done anything opposite of the superintendent's recommendation, but all of these are supposed to come before the board anyways. So I guess that is where the board,
Would know.
yeah, they would review, in their point of reviewing whatever the superintendent's decision is. And I don't know why it says may, because, the board's supposed to see all those and approve them.
Right.
So it shouldn't say may. It should say the board reviews the superintendent's decisions.
Well, so in 3005,
Mhm.
we put the superintendent may deny an open enrollment request within such enrollment that would negatively impact the efficient use of district resources. The superintendent may set numerical limits defining hardships for schools, grade levels, yada, yada, yada. So, and in this one, I feel like it specifically says the superintendent.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 3010, it says the board, so that's.
Right, well, and theoretically, it wouldn't matter if it was 3005 or 3010 or whatever. Any of those decisions that the superintendent makes must come before the board in order for the board to say yea or nay.
So, follow up, just so that I understand,
Mhm.
are we saying that every zone and open enrollment, before we're telling the parents, yea or nay, it comes before the board, it's not gonna be a superintendent decision?
Well, it is her decision.
Well, it's open and, it's specific to open
So
enrollment.
we're just talking open
Yeah.
enrollment, okay?
Yeah.
And so those would, in your mind, that's a Becky and then she's telling you, or it's coming to the board and you guys are making the decision collectively?
Well, we can always override the decision. That's the thing. I don't know that, I don't know, we would have to ask the board, you know,
Yeah.
like, do they want, you know, just a report and says, oh, okay, which I think we've done in the past. I think there's only been one other time when like the parents wanted to be, annexed in or something like
Right.
that.
Mhm.
But, I mean, even in just going through the statute, it keeps saying the board, the board, the board, the
Mhm.
board, and I don't mind.
I just wouldn't wanna tell a parent yes, and then when we
Right.
go to a board meeting, come back, so, I mean, if it's
Yeah.
not a final decision, I wouldn't wanna tell the parent till it's a final
Right.
decision at whatever part that is, just
Right.
because if they planned, they now, you know, if we had a board meeting and then we're a month out and we've said yes on week 3 or week 2, and they've been in school now
Right.
for 2 weeks,
Right.
that would, you know, I'd feel really bad for the parent and that child.
Well, in my opinion, the board shouldn't, in those instances, like, administration should not have to wait a month to bring those are the things I think that, in my brain anyways, that, create the necessity of a special meeting. You know, look, we got these 5 students we need to deal with, and boom, we show up the day, we have a meeting, look at it, we say yay, nay, or whatever.
Can you make a note that if the board chooses to go in the direction of not allowing, open enrollment, we do need to have a resolution? Because in 1402 it states, by resolution of the board of trustees, any district may opt out, or may opt not to receive pupils. I'm sorry, what was the statute?
33-1402.
See, in the statute though, it doesn't state anywhere that within this enrollment procedure, it falls on the school board?
Well, you'd have to move 33, 1400, 1401, 2, 3, 4, 5, blah, 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 blah.
Okay.
All go back to the board. It all has to do with transfers, enrollment,
Right.
all those things. And if the board's supposed to do this and the board does that, and then if they do this, then they move to whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and I don't care, we could,
Well, no, what I just don't wanna do is, I don't wanna complicate the situation. I
right,
mean, 'cause
absolutely.
If
If you're
the
at,
transfers, are the open enrollment kiddos that are specific to out of district, I honestly do think need to come before the board. Because there needs to be some control over our overcrowding, how.
and you understanding the magnitude of that decision.
Exactly, because we don't know
Right.
at all. In
Zone
district transfer,
is-
that's, I mean, that's definitely within the district's ability to figure out,
Right.
hey, can
And
Ed Kiefer move to John Brown,
Right.
you know, so, but.
And those
also-
decisions aren't made in isolation, it's a team, like we're all looking at, both principals are involved in all of that, but.
Right, but when we come down to where we're saying the kiddo's gotta go, or we're expelling, or we're doing whatever because he's a problem kiddo, with what you were, see, that's not, I'm just having a really bad day. It's not a good day.
And
When-
there's just a lot that we don't have.
Repairs,
Okay.
cause your glasses caught it and pulled it down.
I'm having a day, let me tell ya.
Oh, it's Friday.
But the revocation of a transfer, I think if the board is approving the transfer, then if we have a situation where the transfer needs to be revoked, that needs to come back and fall on the board. Because if the board's approving it, the board's the one that should be saying there is enough. I guess it would in a sense fall onto a student hearing, you know, that if we're, if the kiddos become that big of a problem that we need to say, I'm sorry, you're not allowed in this district anymore, that needs to fall on the board, not just arbitrarily, and I'm not saying
Right.
it would be.
No, I agree.
But not arbitrarily as a principal going, okay, you're out, or, you know, the superintendent being, okay, we're done, no more transfer for you. I think there needs to be more of a systematic process, because if we're saying we're approving the transfer coming in, we should also be revoking it.
And Dr. Meyer always, if this were ever to be a thing,
Uh-huh.
you were revoking it, I mean, you would have to show all the things that you've done to try to support the family. I mean, it's not an easy decision for sure.
Right.
So what I'm hearing you say is, and again, language-wise, open enrollments would come to the board if we had one and, you know, we had 5, and I'm just envisioning right around, you know, August and September, because that's when people are trying to register, and we recognize that, you know, you now moved, and so now we're gonna do a proof of residency and all of that. If we had to do a special board meeting for open enrollment improvements, we would. But then zone transfers would be specific to the admin team, and then all revoked transfers would be specific to the board as well. Is that what you're saying? Open enrollments, all open enrollments on the front end, on the back end come to the board.
Correct. But-
Zone transfers stay within the district.
Correct. Wouldn't that be what you would think, Lenora?
I mean, this will be
They're
part of your
already-
discussion with
right.
everyone, but.
Oh, yeah, with the board, because it just
Right.
needs to, there needs to be,
Yeah, we need to make
Some
sure
clarity
policy
there.
jives with what we're
yeah.
saying. Okay, so I guess we just leave the language the way it is then, we'll just leave the May,
until you guys get more clarity from the other three.
Yeah. That, and I don't want it to seem either, because I think every time I suggest, I feel like every time I suggest a check, or just keeping the board in the loop, it almost comes across as a negative, and maybe that's the way I present it, or maybe it's my perception, and that's not my intention. My intention is that as a trustee, I now realize the community, whether correctly or incorrectly, number one, thinks the board has more power than the board does.
Right.
Or thinks the board does more than it does.
Right.
But also I find a lot of things happen that, as a board member, like I didn't know about that, or I didn't, you know. So it's never meant as a negative. It's just trying to keep everybody on the same page, so like there's a good communication flow. And it's not trying to, you know, restrict someone's job description or it's not that. The communication is not good, and it's getting better, I think, much better than what it has been.
I think some of it is just you guys trying to understand the systems and procedures from a system standpoint, and then making sure that in your understanding, you have all the facts in order to really understand it. You know?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And then when the buck does fall on the board, you know, I mean, the board can't say, oh, we didn't know that, right? You know, I forget what this saying is about ignorance is no blah, blah, blah.
I'm not really good with analogies. I intermix them and then I kind of lose their meaning. It's not good.
But it makes sense to you.
In my head it did.
Yeah. Okay. So new the district, Nora. Oh, are you trying to reword that? And then it continues on, in no event is a district or an employee of the district to recruit students.
That's some low language. Michelle, when do you have to leave?
I just have a 12 o'clock meeting.
The other thing that's referenced in here, and so maybe Ramon, if you want to look at it, we have 3010P, and there's two versions, and we actually don't have a version, so it's the 2 from ISBA. So I don't know if, again, we're taking this to the board more for input, so maybe it's fine just to present both.
Well, one is for the open,
Right,
one's
right.
for not open.
Right.
So they both have to go to the board.
But is there any language that's what I meant, sorry.
Yeah,
Just
started.
Oh, gotcha.
anything you wanna take or off or not, just so that we can link both versions in if we wanna make any changes to those.
If I started writing on,
I don't like this. This is a bit of an annoyance.
the only thing I saw in that was the, so I looked at, the 3010PA1. I think I must be missing a page.
And then inevitably, whatever that decision is, then we'll have to look at the open enrollment policies, if that's what we decide to do or not do, and decide if there's one better than the other. But we do have time, 'cause we don't have an official board meeting for another 3 weeks, so we can kinda get through some of this.
Yeah, I liked the option A for the 3010P2, yeah, the team being made up of, 3 people, which it stated the superintendent, the principal or vice principal of the building that the student wants to attend, and then whomever the superintendent designates. And the team, sounds like what you guys do anyways, look at all of the facts and then decide. I mean, I'm fine with that. I'm not in the day-to-day grind, so I think you guys could make that decision. I don't wanna be in the day-to-day. I got my own grind going on. So I was fine with that.
Michelle, are you on the limitations?
I am, that's on
What are
a
your-
zone transfer, that's not an open enrollment.
What are your thoughts about that?
District.
If it does happen, parents requesting, you know,
Multiple in the same year.
it doesn't happen often, but it does happen, and typically it's a domestic situation.
Oh, I don't know if they were allowed to do that. Didn't we read somewhere that they weren't supposed to be multiple in the same year?
And the statute?
Yeah, but there might have been exception
I think there
with
are.
what you're saying.
Mhm.
Homelessness, you know, making sure that we're meeting all those acts.
Right.
But yeah, somewhere I do remember reading that, hardship has to be taken into consideration. That's the other thing, transfers are supposed to have written policy guidelines. Blah, 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 blah.
Some of those guidelines are in the application process.
Yeah. Maybe it was in our own policy, I don't know, but I know
So there's a caveat to that if there's a hardship of some kind.
Well, okay, my problem with the paragraph is we're saying, students may not be permitted to request more than one zone transfer a year. But then we say, such requests require a conference with the superintendent.
Right.
So,
Right. We conflict.
yeah, so I would say students requesting more than one zone transfer in a school year are subject, to review, with the, well,
actually, the review would, if we go with option A of, 3010 PA, the review would be with the, team, open enrollment team, but, so the conflict is this, it's not that, well,
they have the district leadership team. and
yeah, whatever
your
team is
transfers.
doing.
But in this specific thing with a zone transfer, it would be at the building level, the superintendent, or, I mean, it could be
Okay.
myself or Lisa, but it always includes
faculty.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is, it's, it just says that they may not be permitted to do it, it doesn't say that they can't do it.
But, okay, if you take out. Cause I'm just doing this for visual preference.
Okay, sure.
Students may not be permitted to request more than one zone transfer each year. Such requests, when we're telling them, such requests require a conference. So what I wanna say is I wanna take the negative out of the first
Students
sentence.
making
Students
more than
requesting.
one request per year require a conference with the superintendent or board prior. So students who make their request more than one time a year.
Okay, so,
Or in reference to the language of 3010P,
Yeah.
whatever it says specific to the team, however
Yeah.
it's worded.
And it does state who the team is. The team is the superintendent, principal or vice principal, and then whomever yeah. So students requesting ones subject
Again,
to
these are,
reviews
this is
or-
really an outlier, but it does happen.
Yeah, so it should be with the superintendent, the board, or the open enrollment team. And then we can reference 3010 PA1. PA
Don't put
Yeah,
A1, just
one.
put B.
you can just
Just
put
decide if it's gonna be A.
that reference this policy at the bottom of this policy.
no, but the A1
Mhm. Oh,
coincides
sorry.
with 3010 A1.
Mhm.
So it would just be 3010 P.
Right.
The A1 would be removed. I know it says it there, but
Right.
it's.
Oh, this is our option.
This is
Yeah,
ours,
yeah,
yeah.
Gotcha, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, because it specifically states who the open enrollment team
Would
is.
be.
Okay.
Yeah, right
Alright,
here, it
perfect.
says who it's made up of, so.
So I'm gonna go ahead
Okay.
and line this out.
Can you,
Go back up to the narrow so Ramona can see what Michelle's putting in there.
And this is just, I get what those little thoughts in my brain.
Please.
Janelle, can you do me a favor, can you ask the other trustees if they mind, sharing, they're not sharing birth year, but their birth date with the rest of the board?
Actually, Rebecca has them all, so I will,
But we need to ask the board members if they mind that being put on the board calendar.
oh, okay.
So we know, I, throughout the couple of years, have put little notes, like I get a pop-up of whose birthday's when, and I try to send an email, although I missed Trent's birthday because I was so sick. I don't know if I had yours on there or not, I think it might be, but
We met on my birthday.
yeah, so maybe that's why I wrote it down, because anytime I hear somebody mention something about their birthday and I always try and put it down, which is so funny because, I just think of, like, my daughter in the Sunshine Club at Twin Lakes, and she's like, sunshine, I don't have time for sunshine.
But something like those little things count, people,
Yeah,
yeah.
they do. So I just thought, I've been trying to think of ways to, the last 2 years have just been difficult for everybody, so I'm trying to bring us back to some humanity. So I feel like we've lost a lot of humanity. Anyways, yeah, so I thought, if we do birthdays or, we could, whatever, I don't know, we might do like a child and make them hold a globe and say, it's so-and-so's, 10th trip around the sun.
Love it.
And
also-
sometimes it's good to come back, right, and remember that, adulthood isn't all it's cracked up to be.
Well, no, we're all human.
Yeah, Yeah,
We reached
so,
another year of seasoning.
Yeah. right.
I'm changing this language as well. So do we add that to our list? Is it on the list?
3010.
The report, we have to do the report, but she wants to review it and check it, cause it could be situational depending on what the environment.
We're gonna have to build another elementary school in Apple.
What's happening on 41, where all the trees are down, isn't it
Whole new development though.
Yeah,
right there?
everywhere.
I was heartbroken, I love driving that road because of all the trees.
Yesterday, it just really stood out to me because I was actually driving during the day. Most time I feel like I'm driving at night. you
Yeah.
know. Yeah.
Yep, there's
The
two
apple is
huge,
popping.
there's two huge developments. One of, I wanna say one is 260 homes and the other's 400.
Families or.
Yeah, well, some are multi,
Mm,
generational housing, I guess you could call it, if you get with the technical, but where it would be single family, maybe apartments, townhouses, and then,
Wow.
retirement community. And then another one, I think the one out back is 260 homes.
Wow.
Yeah, so there's a lot of growth happening out there.
Plus, there's land out there still, right?
Yes.
So if people want to have acreage.
And most of them are,
Mhm.
well, not one, those within the city limits or those that are being annexed in are more community-based kind of thing. Yeah, but there are some, people, that might be able to assist the district. There's just a lot of changes happening out there that, I think that the district becomes a partner with those things that are happening,
Right.
would be beneficial.
Doesn't Becky do Apple?
She joined this year, remote, you're on the
Yeah.
board, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, she joined this year, she does, Spirit Lakes and then Rathruns,
Yeah.
so.
We're a little different because we're Apple. So our community, our chamber is more of a community action, like community. So we have 5 major events a year. And we don't really we're not the typical chamber that, we have business development and this and that. We do recognize new businesses and all that, but we're more focused on the community because that's just how our community works. So we do Christmas festival for free. We do Veterans Coffee on Us for free. We do a 50-50 raffle, we do, which is $1,000, to back to somebody, so we keep 1,000, they get 1,000, we do a lot of community, we do, the Lakeland Judo Club, we always have, spaghetti feeds for them and all that kind of stuff, we've done the 4-H, I forget the horse group and gals, we help them raise money for so we're more of a focus on the need of the community, we support the food bank huge, we do community cleanups, we do, so we're a little bit different, the word chamber came out of a few years back, we did, a community review with all the, state and federal and local stakeholders in the state. Through the rural, I'm gonna say rural development, but that's not the name of the committee. Anyways, where everybody came together, water resources, land resources, economic development, and we did this huge study. And then along with the community, right, community input also, I was on the economic development team, and we came together sort of like a comprehensive plan, although Apple has a comp plan, but really to understand where the community wanted to go, what our needs were, what our wants were, that kind of thing, and then the community action, or the chamber was born out of that. That was one of the things, so the chamber has tried to take those things that the community wanted and advocate for those, and then those we just do on ourselves. The first year we had our Christmas festival, we had over 400 people, and it's all free. We don't charge for anything, it's all, the food's free, the game, we serve a dinner.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
it's all free,
awesome.
and then of course the veterans thing, and then Buck Knives has partnered with us to give out goodies to the veterans, and then, we have different community, groups that have made quilts to give for prizes, so anyway, so I know when Dr. Meyer probably shows up, it's nothing like, you know, it might be 3 people sitting at the table. You know,
That's
and of course when she came, I was sick, that was my run
Oh,
of
okay.
really sick, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so we're a little bit different, we're Apple.
Okay,
That's
let's refocus.
I'm focused.
I made a new paragraph for this
Right.
evaluation of the policy.
Okay.
So previously, it read annually, the superintendent shall report to the board the effect of this policy. His or her report should include the number of open enrollments requests accepted or denied by each school, which doesn't make sense because they're not the ones doing it, the reason for denial, and any unanticipated results of the policy. I changed it to state the board shall review this policy annually, or we could say shall annually review this policy, which I think is accurate. The superintendent shall report the effects of this policy based on the number of open enrollment requests accepted by the district, the number of zone transfers requested, and approved.
Yeah. Should they be 2 separate things? Do we wanna know the requests versus the approval? Or both, you know?
The next
Well, I
sentence
said
says,
the number of denied requests for
Oh,
open
okay.
enrollment and zone transfers and any other unanticipated results of this policy, which I don't like that statement, but,
Kind of blanket
I hate this computer. Sorry. It's a hard word. I don't know, that just, it seems too open and vague. Because I don't know what other information.
Nobody does, because it would be, privilege, right, to go into that, so we don't know the future. So I think open and vague in some instances is just a necessity. Especially when it's something that we haven't really,
should have an experience.
yeah, you know, we have no data to change
Because
it.
we don't know what it is that's regarding this policy, so or this policy, okay. So I like that paragraph much better. Because the board needs to review it, constantly see where the pulse of the community is, cause maybe someday it'll shift and everyone will be like, ooh,
Right.
let it all.
Because you have
Or
10
finding
minutes
loving.
for next time, just sticking on this policy, do you feel like we wanna review this one more time, or do you feel like this could go to the March board meeting?
Well, I want this to go with the other one, the A2, so we need to review that, and I'd like it to go also with the P.
So next week.
Next
we'll
Friday,
just-
I won't have a 12 o'clock meeting, it's just a 2-day
Okay, so next
conference.
Friday we'll do everything related to this one policy, so we'll do the A1s and 2, the P, A1s and 2s, the Fs, A1 and 2, cause we have ISBAs and then ours. And then we'll look at 3080, cause this is still connected to that, so that would be great, cause then at the March 9th, if we feel like we have a revised copy, then we're doing all the cross-reference policies together all in one, so it's not.
Oh, that'd be beneficial.
Right,
Yeah,
so-
that'd be usually beneficial.
And then I'll still add, so we have all of that now, and then I'll put 1240 at the bottom, and if we get to it,
I think
That's-
1240 is fairly simple, I think we can scratch it off and tell you the truth. Just the There it is. Oh, this was a delineation, so you have to go through the, okay, or at best, put the
reference, the legal references down here that identify all the responsibilities of the board, because I don't like the vagueness, I don't like the fact that people think we're doing things that are outside of our job.
Right.
They think we're doing things outside of our job because they don't understand what our job really is.
right,
And I want to be able to
Want
say,
clarity.
please read this. This tells you what we do, the board does, this tells you why, it doesn't tell you why they do it, but this
Right.
tells you what the board does.
so that would be 33,512, is that what it is? Yes. Oh no, that's governance of schools, well,
33.5 or something.
yeah, there's a lot.
There's quite a bit.
Yeah.
So then we'll move.
That's to Michelle's point at the very beginning, it's not just a one
Right.
done, like we have to look at multiple codes.
At least the very high level, the simplicity of what the board does is contained in 33,512 with regards to what most people think, I think. Which is the setting the calendar, the, dealing with classified, non-classified staff, blah, 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 blah. At least at very high level, at least those things should be on there. But 33,500, is literally what the board does. And then there are other things, so, or at least those things that is governed by the board.
So,
Yeah.
next week when we come back, again, we have all the copies, but I'll just keep this one, we'll look at it one more fresh read, cause it's all connected anyways, and then we'll look at, the Ps and the Fs, both forms,
Mhm.
and then we'll look at 3080,
Mhm.
and then if we have time, we'll jump to 1240. Are you guys good with that?
Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay, so are we?
And I hope to be more organized.